It can be easy to think of purpose as one of those fuzzy, intangible, feel-good kind of things and relegate it to a space, kind of like the space we relegate soft skills to, right? Like, sure, I get it, they're important, but where's that edge? How is this really going to contribute to me and my goals and my well-being? Well, purpose, especially the way that I teach it, is so much more than an intangible. In fact, it's down into every cell of our body, and there are real physiological benefits to a defined sense of purpose. This book, The Art of Impossible, Stephen Kotler, who's kind of really fascinated with this idea of super performance and flow state and really maximizing your impact as a human being, spends a lot of time talking about purpose and its connection to high performance. And in fact, the research that Kotler cites brings in so many tangible benefits to having a strong sense of life purpose. I'm going to talk about a few here. Number one, a less reactive amygdala. Now, the amygdala is the part of your brain that I call it like your stress gremlin, right? It's the part of your brain that's kind of there. It's the guard dog. It's ready whenever something threatening is approaching, at least as it perceives, and it kind of signals to your brain and your body and your whole nervous system that, okay, it's time to get edged up. This is stressful. This is a threat, right? And there's this interesting inverse relationship where a higher sense of life purpose means a less reactive amygdala. In other words, that gremlin's just a little bit more chilled out. And what does this mean? It means you become more resistant to distraction. It means you stay more calm and clear and focused. And in the long run, it means you're more resilient in moving towards your goals with a sense of focus. All right. There are other things like the incidence of stroke, dementia, and cardiovascular disease go down with a strong sense of life purpose. Interesting, right? I'll take those. Now, that's not why I do purpose work or why I teach it, but what an interesting phenomenon that having a strong sense of connectedness with something bigger and grander than you actually ends up really impacting you at the physiological level like that. For me, my hypothesis is that this is how our nervous system is responding to this purpose frequency that we're activating, and there's a sense of harmony and balance that comes into the body when you're emotionally and psychologically balanced with a sense of purpose. Next, a high sense of purpose is linked to a lower level of what they call self-rumination. Now, self-rumination is this tendency that we have, this rut we can fall into where we're just kind of churning on the same thoughts again and again to the point where we get locked into these cycles that are very unhealthy and unhelpful. In fact, self-rumination is one of those traits very highly linked to depression, right? So again, there's this indirect link now between a high sense of self-purpose and less depression, right? Here's another one, higher levels of motivation, productivity, and focus, right? To a measurable degree. So purpose is not a nice to have when it comes to doing big things in the world and in your life. They're actually an enhancement, right? I would say they're necessary if you're really going to lock in and make that life level legacy impact. These are things that you need. You're going to need that sustained motivation. You're going to need smart productivity, and you're going to need the ability to focus and avoid distraction. Okay? Now, there's another piece to this that I find really, really intriguing. And this is that a high sense of purpose is linked to a higher level of social support. Now, there's kind of two angles I like to take with this. One is just really practical. And that is when you're locked into a sense of purpose, you're kind of like dug in, you're focused, you're working on something big. People notice, people see that. People sense your mood. They sense your focus. They're picking up on your mission and they're intrigued. People can sense authenticity. And when you are moving through the world with this authentic sense of purpose, people pick up on that. They want some of that. So they're going to approach, they're going to be curious. They may even want to support. And this level of social support actually increases your own intrinsic internal motivation. And then that cycle just gets jacked up even more. And it becomes this virtuous cycle, which is really beneficial. Now, that's kind of my conventional way of explaining that one. But there's also a more esoteric or even metaphysical way to think about this. And, I talk a lot about the purpose frequency, that by doing this work, this full spectrum version of this purpose work, where we're tapping in at the body level, at the emotional level to the sense of purpose, and we begin to sense what I call the purpose frequency, you're literally shifting your vibration, right? And the universe speaks the language of vibration, and people are also picking up on this. They sense something authentic, something resonant, and they're drawn to it. There's a magnetism that gets increased, amplified when you're tapped into the sense of purpose. Interesting. But don't take my word for any of this. You need to test this out for yourself. You need to experience and feel this for yourself. That's the beauty of purpose work, right? It's not something to be taken on faith. It's something to experiment with. And that's honestly why I call my platform, my program, the Purpose Lab, because I want your life to be a laboratory where you take these concepts and you try them on. You go all in and you feel for yourself if this resonates like truth for you. And there's one more tangible benefit I want to talk about in regards to this sense of purpose. And it's connected to the blue zones research. I don't want to go too deeply into that here, but a quick summary. So Dan Buettner is a researcher who many years ago became aware of these pockets around planet Earth where the populations were living to ridiculously high levels of longevity, like statistically, like ridiculous compared to even nearby villages and locations and geographies. And so he started to dig in. And so he traveled around the world and tried to figure out what these communities were doing that was so different, that gave them such a high level of longevity. And eventually these places on planet Earth got dubbed the blue zones. Well, the short answer is that it's a complex mix of factors, right? And there's a cool chart, a pyramid chart that they show, kind of like these layers of factors that impact longevity based on their research. But guess what a commonality is across these, blue zones around planet Earth? A strong sense of purpose. Now, it has different names and takes different forms in these different parts and these different places. In Japan, in the Okinawa region, there's this concept of ikigai, and that's this philosophy, this concept that there's a reason for being that we can capture, that we can unfold from ourselves. And one of our roles as a human is to actually tap into this ikigai throughout our lifetime, right? And Okinawa is one of the blue zones, right? Let's go to Costa Rica. There's a blue zone in Costa Rica where there's this really strong concept called plan de vida, your life plan. Very, very similar to Ikigai, and it's not a coincidence. So there's something here about how our body, how our physiology is responding to this sense of purpose, determining why we're here. And as I've said in previous videos, we can ponder for months and years and lifetimes about where that purpose comes from. But the point is that I really want to drive home is, regardless of where it comes from, that's secondary to the act of actually exploring and finding it and living it. And that's when all of these benefits can come into fruition for you and your life. So I really invite you to go even deeper into your purpose work journey. The Purpose Lab community is a place where we have tools and support and programs so that you're not doing this alone, and you can really take this laboratory I'm referring to and live it, right? But not alone. Live it with others who are also curious and eager to bring their impact to the world. All right. Good luck.